But I always tell the college students that come out, I say, take the job that you would take if you were independently wealthy. You know, you're going to do well at it.
In all these years, with so many interviews, so many investors, students and journalists asking me what to do with the money, no one has ever asked me this question. Warren, what if you lost everything and had to start from scratch with just $10,000? It's curious because this is perhaps the most important question of all. Most people want to know which stock to buy, where to invest, what's trending, but almost no one asks what remains standing when everything collapses. The truth, if I lost everything today, and if you only had $10,000 in your pocket, I wouldn't start looking for opportunities in the market. I would start from the same place I started, way back, with clarity, with patience, and with an unwavering commitment to the right principles. Because money is just a reflection, but vision, discipline, and character, these are assets that no one can take away from you. When I was 11 years old, I bought my first shares. I spent every penny I had, $14.75. And I was wrong. I spent years studying charts, trying to predict movements, until I understood that the game wasn't about predicting the market. It was understanding business. If I only had $10,000 today, I would know exactly what to do. Not because I have a magic formula, but because I learned to think different. So if you're listening to this right now and you feel like you're starting small, remember the question is not how much you have, it's who you choose to be with what you have. If I had to start over today with just $10,000, the first thing I would do, it would be not to rush, because when you have little, the biggest mistake you can make is wanting to run. And the second biggest mistake is trying to appear too smart. The truth is simple. With $10,000, you can't go far wrong. There is no room for emotional bets, nor for fads disguised as opportunities. This is where many get lost. They confuse speed with progress, and they confuse movement with direction. But I learned early that money doesn't multiply because you move fast. It grows when you think right and wait for the right moment. If I only had $10,000, my first decision wouldn't be where to invest. It would be like protecting myself, from my impulse, from my rush, my desire to prove something. Because the investor's biggest enemy is not in the market, it's in the mirror. I've always said temperament is more important than IQ. You may have a brilliant brain, but if you don't have emotional control, you'll stumble alone before the market even tests you. So start over. It also means reviewing the way you think about the game. I wouldn't try to impress anyone. I wouldn't try to show that I'm back. I would do what I always did. Listen more than I talk, read more than I think, and wait until the right opportunity speaks loud enough that I can't ignore it. This is the real beginning. When people ask me where to start, I always repeat what I've been saying for decades. Rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget number 1. And no, that's not just a catchphrase, it's a philosophy of life. With just $10,000, this rule becomes even more sacred, because when you have little, every mistake costs you a lot. And the quickest path to bankruptcy is to believe that you can afford to be wrong just a little bit. But see, never losing money does not mean never taking a risk. It means understanding the risk before acting. It means respecting capital as if it were your only chance, because maybe it is. Many people start by asking, how do I make this money grow fast? But the right question is, how do I avoid losing this money in a stupid way? I do not seek immediate profit. I look for assets that don't make me lose sleep. Assets that maintain their value over time. Businesses that, even in silence, continue to breathe and generate cash. Most lose money because they are trying to win as if they were in a casino. But this isn't roulette, it's construction. When you respect money, it starts to respect you back. He stops running, and that starts with a decision before trying to multiply.
If I had to start over with just $10,000, I wouldn't start trying to learn everything at once. I would start by remembering what I already know, then I understand deeply. I would call this my circle of competence that would stay inside him. Many people think that to invest well, you need to know everything. But the truth is, you just need to know where, don't step. I don't invest in cutting edge technology. I've never been the guy who understands the next revolution, but I understand human behavior. I understand what makes a business good. I understand the value of a strong brand, competent management, a product that people buy without the need for advertising. You don't need a map of the world. You need a compass that works on the land where you are. If I had $10,000 today, I wouldn't pursue opportunities that seem too smart. I would look simple, predictable, even boring business, but consistent. Something that I can explain in one sentence. Something I would use, buy, recommend. The sooner you understand this, the sooner you stop following fads and start building with a firm foundation. The market will always try to seduce you with the new, the complex, the next Google, but my fortune never came from predicting the future. It came from deeply understanding the present. So my advice is, discover your circle and respect the edges, because outside of it, you're not smart. You're just a tourist surrounded by sharks. If I only had $10,000 today, and the mind I have now, I would be extremely selective with my first investment. I would treat that money like a rare seed. And seeds like that, you don't throw them in just any soil. You wait for the right land. Most people with little money seek rapid multiplication, but I would think differently. How can I plant this in a way that allows me to reinvest safely for decades? I would look for one real deal, not an action code on the screen. Maybe a small local business, something that was undervalued, but with solid fundamentals, good customers, good product, and above all, an honest and competent owner. If I found a business like that and the owner was willing to sell part of the operation, maybe I would become a minority partner. Maybe it would help improve efficiency. Maybe I would simply watch and learn. But I would only do that if I understood the business as clearly as I understand a Coca-Cola. If I can't explain it in one sentence, I don't invest. What if I didn't find anything for months? I would wait. Because the worst thing you can do with little money is put it into something you don't understand, just because you feel pressured to act. The right action at the right time with the right asset, it's worth more than 1,000 random moves. And one thing is certain, the right first investment doesn't have to be brilliant, but it needs to be safe. Because more important than multiplying quickly, it's not having to start over again in a year. I wouldn't worry about looking rich tomorrow. I would think about how to become inevitably rich over time. This is the difference between those who understand the game and those who keep jumping from bet to bet. People underestimate what they can do in 10 years, and they overestimate what they can do. But let me tell you a secret. The greatest strength in the investment universe is not intelligence, it's time. You've heard of compound interest, but do you really understand the power of this? It's not just math, it's mentality. It's the understanding that when money works for you, it creates an invisible army, and this army grows every day, even when you are sleeping. But for this to work, you need two things that almost no one has: weather, patience. If I took my $10,000 and made 15% a year with discipline for a few decades, believe me, I would have more than most people who live jumping from opportunity to opportunity. The difference is in the constancy and the silent power of repetition. Imagine a small snowball on top of a hill. It starts out tiny, almost ridiculous, but as it descends, it accumulates mass. And when it comes to an end, it's unbeatable. That's why I named my memoir The Snowball, because that's exactly how I built my fortune. One disciplined decision after another, one reinvestment cycle after another, and time always by my side. If you have little money today, remember, what you need is not speed, it's direction, and an internal clock that is not influenced by the noise of others. If I had to start over with just $10,000, I wouldn't just look for opportunities, I would look for the right people, because the right money in the wrong hands disappears, but limited money in the right hands multiply. Many people think that getting rich is a lonely journey, but it's not. What I achieved in life, I didn't achieve alone. Charlie Munger is not just my business partner. He is my expanded consciousness, my compass in moments of noise, and a constant reminder that thinking differently with integrity is a lonely path, but a right one. If I had to start over,
I would look for people like that. People who challenge me to think better. People who ask the right questions, even when it's not comfortable. People with character, not just a resume. When I buy a company, the first thing I look at is not the product, it's who's behind it. And do you know why? Because good businesses can survive bad times, but they don't survive bad owners. And over the years, I've learned something valuable. The most precious capital you can find is the character of those who walk with you. If I had $10,000 and found a good deal with a bad partner, I would say no. But if I found a good person with a good idea, willing to build with ethics and vision, maybe I would put it all there. Because at the end of the day, real wealth isn't just about multiplying money. It's about building something that lasts. And nothing lasts where there is no trust.
If I had to start over with $10,000, I would run away from one thing above all others, quick profit. Because what destroys assets is not the lack of opportunities, it's the rush to get rich. The promise of easy money has a seductive voice. She whispers that you can skip steps, that all you need to do is get it right once and your life changes. But what she doesn't say is how many break before getting it right. I see this all the time. People buying what's in fashion, stocks that rise without foundation, cryptocurrencies that no one understands, business that shines like fireworks, intense, short and empty. But see, the truth doesn't change. Real businesses have real fundamentals. They generate cash, have loyal customers, and grow predictably. They are built to last, not to impress on a 7-day chart. If I started over today with little money, it would be tempting to take bets that promise a quick return. But precisely because I have little, I can't go wrong. And nothing creates more mistakes than greed disguised as opportunity. Do you want to know the first step to becoming truly rich? It's refusing everything that seems too good to be true, because it usually is. I prefer to earn little, for sure, than to win a lot with hope, because hope is not a strategy. Making money consistently requires the kind of discipline that seems boring to thrill seekers, but that is the price of solidity. So my advice is simple. Be wary of haste. It charges higher interest rates than any bank, and it destroys more fortunes than any crisis. If I had to start over with just $10,000, I wouldn't change an inch of the way I live, because the basis of my life has always been the same. Live below my means. Many people think that getting rich is about how much you earn, but the truth is that it has much more to do with how much you save. I bought my house in 1958. I live in it to this day. I never needed 5 bathrooms, nor 4 kitchens, nor a garage full of cars that shine more than deliver value. Because I understood one thing early. It is not the standard of living that defines your freedom. It's your level of control over what you spend. People want to appear successful before they actually become successful. They buy the car they can barely afford. They go places to impress people who don't even pay attention. They spend as if they had already won the game, and they end up further away from the finish line. If I had to start with $10,000, I would treat every penny like a brick, not to build a facade, but to build a foundation. Living below my means has never been a sacrifice. It was a strategic choice. It was my way of ensuring that even in the worst-case scenarios, I would have options. True freedom begins when you spend less than you earn. Every time, even when you start earning more. If your lifestyle grows at the same rate as your income, you are running in place, and it doesn't matter if you have 10,000 or 10 million. The principle is the same. Don't spend money to prove anything to anyone, because the less you need to appear, but you can focus on building. If I had to start over today with just $10,000, I would remember how it all started. It wasn't with actions. It wasn't with complex formulas. It was with a pinball machine. I was 17 years old. I bought a used machine for $25. Together with a friend, we put her in a barber shop, and we charge a few cents per match. At the end of the first week, we were in profit. And do you know what we did? We bought another machine, then one more. In a short time, we had several spread across barber shops in the city. That was my first real business. I didn't need venture capital or a big team or a business plan with colorful graphics. What I needed were 3 things: a simple opportunity, a reliable partner, and the decision to reinvest instead of spending. Back then, I didn't call it compound interest, but that's what started there. You may think that $25 is not much, but when you understand how to multiply small cash flows and have the discipline not to take that money out of the cycle, the magic begins. If I only had $10,000 today, I would do the same kind of thing. Find a small productive asset, something that generates real and constant return. Then protect this cycle with tooth and nail. It was this philosophy, built with a simple pinball machine, which decades later made me the owner of multi-billion-dollar companies. The money was a consequence. The mentality came first. And I tell you, whether you understand this at 17, 27, or 47, you can start your own snowball now. If I had to start over with just $10,000, most of this money would not go to the market. I would go to myself. It seems too simple, I know, but that's precisely why almost no one takes it seriously. The truth is that you are the most valuable asset you will have in life, more than any share, property, or investment. When I was young, I took a Dale Carnegie course to learn public speaking. It was one of the best decisions of my life. I didn't just learn to talk. I learned to communicate ideas with clarity, confidence, and purpose. And that increased my market value more than any investment would have done at that time. The funny thing is that no one can take that away from you. There is no tax on skill. There is no inflation about wisdom, and no economic crisis can erode the value of a well-trained mind. If I only had $10,000, I would read, I would study, I would practice, I would develop my communication, I would become more disciplined, more lucid, more efficient, because the return on investing in yourself is guaranteed as long as you act consistently. Any external investment depends on factors that you do not control, but internal investment that depends solely on you. You want to double your market value, increase your ability to think clearly, act ethically, and communicate with impact. And if you become good enough, sooner or later, the world will pay you for this. Sit in front of young Warren, that thin, anxious boy with curious eyes who read books like someone looking for a treasure map. I wouldn't talk about stocks, neither about returns nor about formulas. I would look him in the eye and say, don't be in a hurry, but don't waste time either. I would say that the world will test you with glitter, noise, fads, and that the best results in your life will come from silent decisions made calmly when no one else is looking. I would tell him to trust in simplicity, because that's where the real power lies. Simple business, simple principles, simple life. I would remind him that ethics is not a profit, it is a competitive differentiator. That reputation is like fine china. It takes years to shape, but seconds to break. And I would also this, Warren, you don't need to be brilliant. You need to be constant. Brightness appears and disappears. Constance builds. Oh, and I would say something else. Don't ignore the heart. You can earn billions, but if you lose what really makes you smile, you've lost everything. Young Buffett wanted to be rich, and there's nothing wrong with that. But today I know that true wealth is doing what you love, with who you respect, for as long as you want. So if you're listening to this right now and feel like you're starting small, or late, or lost, remember, you are closer than you think. Just make decisions like it's someone you're truly proud of, because one day you'll look back and thank you for starting the right way. Now that you've heard all this, $10,000 may seem like a little, or it may seem like a powerful seed. It depends on how you think, depends on who you decide to be. I don't have a formula for you. I don't have a right answer. But I have a question, perhaps the most important of all. If all you had today was $10,000 and the mind you have now, what would you do? Would you spend it in a hurry trying to prove something to someone who isn't even paying attention? Or would you invest with patience, building something that no one can take away from you? Would you bet on promises, or would it plant roots? You would follow the noise of the world or your own internal compass. The truth is, the number on your account doesn't matter. Your thinking pattern matters, your discipline, your long-term vision, and above all, your ability to decide with conscience, not emotion. Most will continue chasing the shortcut. But if you made it this far, maybe he's the type who builds in silence and harvest at the right time. So I return the question to you. And you, with $10,000 and the right mind, what would you choose to build?